You were born in Brooklyn.
I was born in Brooklyn, yes, which is a province of New York.
To go where fashion sits.
I did put in.
And you won't be angry?
I will not.
I mean, I went to Manhattan and I met all these Gentiles and it was a little frightening. That was frightening. I said, my God.
Mel Brooks is 99 years old, worth roughly $100 million. And instead of locking everything down, he's doing the opposite. He's letting go, quietly, intentionally, and in ways that have started to confuse the people closest to him. In 2010, when he sold one of his Tony Awards at auction, most people assumed it was just another celebrity charity gesture. Generous, sure, but harmless. What almost nobody noticed was that it was the first visible crack in a pattern that had defined his entire life. Mel Brooks, the man who spent decades fighting studios for control, ownership, and creative freedom, had begun dismantling his legacy piece by piece. To understand why, you have to go all the way back to Brownsville, Brooklyn, where Mel was born on June the 28th, 1926, in a cramped tenement on Powell Street. The family survived on $25 a week. Food was limited, space was non-existent. His parents carried the weight of Ukrainian Jewish roots while navigating the Depression. And Mel, the youngest of 4 boys, learned early how small a person could feel in a loud, unforgiving world. He watched people closely because he had to. You either learned how to read a room or the room ate you alive. He was small, sickly, and bullied. In Brownsville, weakness was a target. So Mel adapted. He learned voices before he learned confidence. Irish accents, Italian rhythms, Southern drawls. The moment he became someone else, the punches stopped. What began as protection became instinct, and instinct became comedy. Later in life, he would say imitation wasn't just humor, it was psychology. It taught him how people think, how they hide fear, how they posture through pain. When he was 9, his uncle took him to the Alvin Theater to see Anything Goes. Ethel Merman's voice shook the room. Mel walked out knowing one thing with absolute clarity. He would never work in the garment district. He would make people laugh. That decision didn't feel brave at the time. It felt necessary, almost defiant. As a teenager, he learned drums from Buddy Rich, another Brooklyn kid who understood rhythm like a weapon. Timing became everything. At 14, Mel was already playing paid gigs in the Catskills. At 16, he filled in for a sick MC and realized something unexpected. People laughed harder at his jokes than they ever had at his drumming. That shift mattered. The crowd leaned toward him, and he leaned back. Then the war came. Mel joined the Army, scored high enough on IQ tests to be placed in specialized training, and ended up clearing mines during the Battle of the Bulge. He watched men probe frozen ground knowing one wrong movement meant death. He survived moments that permanently rewired his sense of time. Later, he would joke that minefields taught him comedic timing because survival depended on knowing exactly when to pause. It sounds like a joke. It wasn't. He came home in 1946 carrying trauma he didn't yet have language for. So he worked. Catskills resorts, radio stations, stand-up rooms thick with smoke and tension. He learned how to rescue dead jokes in real time, how to adjust rhythm mid-sentence, how to survive silence. When Sid Caesar hired him for television, Mel entered a pressure cooker that changed American comedy forever. Writers worked until collapse. Sketches were rewritten minutes before airtime. Censors hovered. And yet something revolutionary happened in those rooms. Jewish humor, absurdity, and edge slipped into mainstream television under the cover of speed. Mel learned that comedy could be dangerous and powerful. When he moved into film, the danger multiplied. The producers was rejected over and over. Satirizing Hitler was considered radioactive. When the movie finally happened, it nearly ruined him financially. Studios claimed it lost money. Accounting buried him. He walked away in debt, but also fearless. Because once you've survived that kind of failure, fear loses its grip. From there, Mel Brooks became synonymous with risk. Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, History of the World. He fought studios constantly, over jokes, over tone, over color. He insisted Young Frankenstein be shot in black and white when executives said audiences wouldn't accept it. He tested fart jokes with scientific precision. He rewrote scenes obsessively. He offended everyone equally because satire to him was about balance, not safety. Success followed, awards followed, money followed, and still Mel never seemed attached to it. Which brings us back to the present. By the time he reached his 90s, Mel Brooks had achieved everything. EGOT status, cultural immortality, financial security. Yet instead of hoarding, he began giving, selling awards, donating props, handing over physical pieces of his career to museums. Not quietly, but deliberately. Insiders noticed the pattern before the public did. Lawyers asked questions, family members worried. This wasn't impulsive charity, this was planning. At the same time, he signed deals worth nearly $20 million for new projects. A Spaceballs sequel, a new series tied to Young Frankenstein. On paper, it looked like a late career surge. In reality, the money wasn't flowing where people expected. Much of it was being redirected. Foundations, educational programs, comedy workshops, museums, long-term cultural preservation rather than inheritance. Mel Brooks, the man who once fought studios to own his work, was now ensuring that no single entity ever owned him. Friends say this shift began after health scares, a pacemaker surgery, the quiet realization that time was no longer theoretical. But it also came from memory, from the war, from friends who didn't come home, from watching how quickly legacies vanish when they're reduced to numbers and contracts. When Mel sold his Tony Award, he wasn't giving up prestige. He was proving it didn't own him. When he gave away props, he wasn't discarding nostalgia. He was placing it somewhere permanent. Museums don't forget, corporations do. He once said comedy was how he fought darkness. At 99, he seems to be fighting something else. Erasure, misinterpretation, the idea that wealth defines worth. By dispersing his assets now, while he's still alive and lucid, he controls a narrative. No estate battles, no corporate repackaging, no posthumous exploitation without context. Even his family, according to insiders, struggles with the scale of it. This isn't just generosity, it's intentional dismantling. A man who spent his life building something is now deciding exactly how it ends. And maybe that's the most Mel Brooks thing imaginable. He survived poverty, war, censorship, failure, and success without losing his edge. Now, at the end of a century-long life, he's making sure the laughter outlives the money, that the work belongs to the world, not a vault, and that when people talk about Mel Brooks in 50 years, they don't talk about his net worth. They talk about what he left behind on purpose.